Welcome to Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. I'm your host, Lashonda Counsel Rogers. In each episode, we have authentic and entertaining conversations about the impact of the law on women. You can find this show on my website, www.thecounselfirm.com, and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Now, please join me in Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. Hello, everyone, and welcome back again to Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. As always, since last week and since I was born, I am Lashonda Counsel Rogers. And today we have Miss Chiquita Lockley. Hey, Quita, how are you?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, of
It's good to
course.
see
Oh, good to see you too. I mean, because you always look fabulous and you know how to reinvent yourself. So I don't know what Quita I'm gonna get when I see you, but it's always a fabulous Quita. So
Well,
hats off to
thank
you, my
you.
dear. So everyone, if you have not met Chiquita Lockley, you are in for a treat today. I have known Chiquita for over 20 years. We go back to our days at Spelman, and she actually pledged me. Obviously, you all know I'm a member of the best sorority around, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Hey, Quita. Yes. And so Quita and I have a very, very special relationship. And so I wanted to share with you all just a little smidgen of the joy that I see when I'm with Shaquita, because she is fantastic. But you know what? Let's just jump right in. So, Shaquita,
Yes.
you are always booked and busy. I always laugh when I think back in the days, maybe 20 plus years ago, and you've been self-employed forever and ever in a day. Amen. And back when it really wasn't that popular to be self-employed and to be so young and self-employed. So how did you maintain positivity, your strength, and your faith to continue to follow your passion? And first of all, let's talk about your passion. Tell us a little bit about your passion, and then how did you maintain faith to keep going? Because most people I know would have quit, got a job, and just stamped that little time clock, 9 to 5, and just called it a day. But you didn't. So let's talk about that. And I know that's a mouthful,
That's
but we'll
fine.
just have little bite-sized nuggets until we get it all done.
Okay. Well, I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. So I'm a writer and producer for television, film, and live events, live event production. And I've been doing that for a very long time. And to your point, of being self-employed forever in this industry, unless you're working at a studio, you're self-employed. So it's popular now, like working from home and what have you. But 25 years ago, it wasn't something that a lot of people were doing. But in my industry, everybody was doing it because unless you worked on like The Young and the Restless or something, um, you would just go from gig to gig and hope and pray that there would be something when you finished your gig. So in terms of keeping the faith, it has not always been easy. It's been like some really, 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 really bad days. But my internal compass, like I feel much of what I work on, I feel is an assignment. It's not just like a job or a gig that I pick up because I have a mortgage. Usually there's a reason that I'm on these projects, or it's something that I'm passionate about, a topic I'm passionate about, an audience that I'm passionate about, which is usually Black women or content for Black folk. So it's inside just saying like this is what needs to happen. So even if it looks bad, I always know that it's gonna work out in the end because this is not about me making $1 trillion on a given day. Like somebody needs this particular message, so it has to work out. And that has kind of helped me stay focused because it's not just a job to me.
That is so interesting because I know we've all heard people say, find your passion and the money will come. And it seems like you are a true testament to that, because I remember the days when you were with Evander Holyfield, you were
Yeah.
doing all kind of
Yes.
stuff, and you were just in it. And you've always given 139.45,000% in everything that you do. And you're always so passionate about it. and it's wonderful, and I love that. And obviously, you are a role model to so many. So let's talk about some of the projects you're working on now. And I know there's so many, but let's just narrow it down to just a few because, like I said, I know you're booked and busy. But tell us some of the projects you're working on.
Okay. And you said like there are a lot of projects. Let me say this. So there was a window of time when I always had a lot of projects stacked because I was a part of hustle culture. Like I'll sleep when I die. We have to do this, do this, do this. And I think one of the gifts of COVID, if we can say there was a gift during the pandemic, it was the gift to refocus and get off the wheel, like the get out of the rat race. Um, so I've been a little bit more particular with the projects I take on because I need a nap.
Mhm.
I follow
Oh,
this.
don't we all? Ma'am, I need a nap right now. Can I go to sleep?
Listen, so I found this Instagram page that I follow. Is the NAP Ministry, NAP, the NAP Ministry,
Nap
and this
minute.
woman is wonderful. So every day, if I jump onto my social media real quick, or if I have to post something, she'll just be like, "Don't forget to take a nap. Don't forget to rest, sis. If there's something that you can do on a list of 10, but somebody else can do three of the things, outsource it so somebody else could do three of the things, and then you have less to do, so that you can get some rest." So that actually has been what I've been doing, but I am working on projects. So I just rolled off of Martin Luther King, the King Center's MLK commemorative honors service, and that took up like all of Q4, the last quarter of last year, the top of this year. But it was fantastic. We had
Okay.
Yolanda Adams as our singer, and Kiera Sheard. Of course, Dr. Bernice King is one of the speakers always. But the keynote was Brian Stevenson from the legal defense, like not legal defense, the Innocence Project. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so. And that movie that Jamie Foxx and Michael B. Jordan were in called Just
Yeah.
Mercy. It was
Yeah.
based off of his book. And this man was wonderful. And he just framed what justice work should look like today versus how it looked when he first started. And he talked about like some of the people who he fought for, but they still got the death sentence, whether or not they ended up being innocent or guilty. And we can look at it like, oh, he's a big lawyer and that was what his job was. But there were so many people who played a role in like helping him, even if it was the person who cooked their meals that day, or if it was
Yeah.
the driver that day. Like we all can play our part in justice, Equal Justice Initiative. That's the name of it, of his company, Equal Justice, EJI, Equal Justice Initiative. So he was just saying how we all could play a role. So that, when I say projects that like make me feel alive, or projects
Yeah.
that I know somebody needs to hear, that's what I'm talking about. Like this wasn't, it consumed a lot of my time and energy just trying to book the people out,
Yeah.
make sure that the show ran. We were on Fox, and then of course it streamed everywhere on their social channels, but we aired live on Fox. So we had the Korean Youth Choir, which is the just a group of kids, there's probably like 50 of them. But their precision is like the Olympics. Like, how did these little tiny kids learn how to they it's choreographed singing, and they were amazing. So that's what I just wrote off of. And it was so good, and it was such a blessing. And in my opinion, and that was my second year working that project with them. So this was my favorite. William Murphy was on. He has a whole album about worship
Yes.
and justice. If for people who don't know, William Murphy sings, well, his one of his original songs was Praise Is What I Do, but
Praise
he's
is
been,
what I do.
yes, but he's been singing for a long, long time. But
Oh
his
yeah.
last project, which I also worked on, it's a worship and justice project, which just it's like very MLK-ish, but just reminding regular people who think, okay, well, I'm not Martin Luther King and I'm not
Right.
Rosa Parks, but it's something you could do wherever you are. So
Yeah.
he participated and he did his song in the program, and it was just great. So that was something that I just wrote off of, and now I'm in the middle. Tasha Cobbs Leonard is having her create a creative conference here in Atlanta in July. So I just wrote
Ah,
onto that because one of the things that happened, I work a lot in faith-based. I used to work a lot with churches. Thankfully, I mean, I don't not thankfully, I probably shouldn't say that, but, but it is thankfully, because I'm only one person and I can't go to everybody
Every
church to
church.
help with
Yeah.
their technology. And what happened? So what I do, I'm on the media side. So like media streaming, making sure that whatever you're doing inside the service is being communicated to people at home. So I have been for the last probably like 15 years, helping churches basically upgrade their
Mhm.
service so that they could communicate outside the walls of the church, right? So when COVID hits,
Yes.
all of the churches that I had consulted for who were like, oh, we don't really have a budget to stream, or we don't have a budget to bring in cameras. Now was a necessity. It became a necessity
Oh,
because
yeah.
the churches were closed because
Sure.
everything locked down. So if you didn't have streaming set up,
Mhm.
you couldn't communicate with your parishioners.
Right.
So Tasha's conference is this summer here in Atlanta. It's in July. It's like right after the 4th of July, the 6th to the 8th, I think. But it's just bringing in all of these church leaders from around the world. Like we have people coming in from Africa, from Europe, and then of course people from most of the people are from the States, but coming in to basically learn more ways to reach and connect with their audience at home. So not everybody is at a mega church with
Sure.
5,000 members or 2,000 members on Sundays. The majority of churchgoers are faith-based communities in our country. You're looking at 200 people, which means you may not have $1 trillion. So how
Yeah.
do you still communicate this message, meet your people, get your announcements out? Like a lot of the churches then, and even still now, because we are not out of the pandemic, like
No, no,
we're
no.
out here without masks like we are, but the numbers are still up. People still don't have jobs. So let's say you're doing a food drive or a clothes drive to like help the people in your community. How do you even tell them? Because they're not, the churches, the doors are open, but the people aren't, they're not back. So
Right.
the conference is just to help people who are like in the trenches in the faith community, trying to get these messages out, trying to help their communities just switch to basically to have better technology and still effectively communicate with folks. Because if you don't know how to talk on camera, you are,
Right.
even if you have a camera and you're looking the wrong way, or you don't have the right speed on your Wi-Fi,
I know.
you're gonna have some problems. So
No,
those
you're
are
you're
two of
right.
the I'm rolling off one, I'm coming on one, and then of course I'm still in the middle of film projects. So
You are just way too much. I love it. I always love your energy, and that sounds like a very, very interesting conference. Even though I don't have a church, meaning I don't. I'm not a
pastor,
pastor, but
right?
that sounds like something that a lot of people need, just to know how to reach their target audience.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm always looking, personal injury attorney. How do I reach my target audience so that they can hear me with all the clouding of messages from other personal injury law firms that don't offer what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and or don't offer it with the same pizzazz that
They
we
don't put
do,
the
and with the
cost.
same results that we
Mm-hmm.
do. And but just reaching them, because
Yeah.
knowledge is key, because you don't know what you don't know.
Don't
So
know.
that is amazing. So let's talk about another project that I know is near and dear to your heart, Eggs Over Easy. Tell us, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about the project,
Okay.
and we'll just go from there.
All right. So back in 2016, I went
Mhm,
to my awesome gynecologist, a black woman, Ivy League educated. So I went for my regular exam, my pap smear. And she
mhm.
looks at my chart. She says, Miss Lockley, you have a birthday coming up. Your eggs are turning 41. Do you know what you want to do with them? And I kind of blacked out because nobody had ever asked me that. And what are you supposed to do with them? So I started researching, like, well, what does one do with her eggs? And long story short, there was a lot of information between what I knew, like a lot of distance between what I knew
Mhm,
and what I did not know. And I felt some kind of way about it. And I couldn't understand why. So we both went to Spelman for undergrad, which is a historically black college and university. It's for women. Okay.
mhm.
So you would think I went to a women's college. We're in a sorority. My circles, several circles that I'm in, like these are women circles.
Right.
Why did I not know these things about fibroids? Why did I not know about endometriosis? Why did I not know about egg freezing and egg donation. I knew none of it. So my goal was to just do, because I am in film, I have a master's in film studies from Emory. So I said, I'm going to do 15 minutes. It'll be a short film so that like my friends and the girls I mentor, they could just have a head start and they don't
Right.
have to do this research that I just had to do. And it turned into 5 hours of content, like just hours and hours and hours of interviews, because we don't have these conversations, but it doesn't mean we don't have these situations. So
Sure.
every time I would say to somebody, um, and sometimes I wouldn't even bring it up. I was at brunch and a friend was like, "Oh, I miscarried. My
Mhm.
husband and I had international donor eggs and it didn't take." What is an international donor egg? How do
Right.
you get? Where do you find it? Who
Yeah.
pays for it? How much does it cost? Does insurance cover it? I had questions, questions, questions. So sometimes it would be like that, and I would interview my friends or friends of friends. And then sometimes, like if I brought it up and said, "Okay, I've been researching fibroids. Did y'all know almost 80%, and now that number is almost 90 of Black women will have fibroids by the age of 50?" And they're like, "We're
I'm
having
one.
hysterectomy."
I'm one. Yeah.
Exactly. Like we're the largest demographic globally to have hysterectomies. Why? Why in the world? Is it genetic or is it a lack of doctor care? Like what is, and sometimes you do need these surgeries, but everybody need the surgery? No,
Right.
not everybody needs surgery. So a friend would say, "Oh, don't forget my cousin. You remember you met her? She has XYZ. Or don't forget this girl. Or don't forget our Spelman sis. Or don't forget this person at Clark. Or don't forget our friend that's the AKA." Like the stories did not stop. I had to stop because I ran out of money.
Mhm.
So once I knew that it was gonna be longer than 15 minutes, I did a Kickstarter. I did it during homecoming, like leading up to homecoming of 2017, and everybody pitched in, and I met my goal, and I was able to like film more, enough to put it into like edit it into something that was sellable, although it wasn't my final product, obviously. But I got enough money to do a few more interviews, and so that's kind of how we pieced it together. Because another thing, with all of the like the streamers and the networks, nobody was interested in this story about Black women's health. Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody was talking about it. Mrs. Obama hadn't disclosed that she used IVF. Like it wasn't a part of our conversation really at all. So nobody was trying to pay for it. And that
Right.
was why it took years for me to finish the project. So 6 years in, it gets picked up by the Oprah Winfrey Network. And so it's been a little over a year now that we aired on OWN.
Yes.
So I'm still excited about it. We're still trying to get the messages out. Um, we got great press coverage and people everywhere. Like I was in Belize minding my business working on another project. I was writing a project. I spent like a month in Belize and I'm eating in a restaurant just chatting with but another Black couple that was there. And the woman was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I just did this film." And when I told her, she started crying and was
Oh,
like, "That's my story. The lady in yellow, that's my story." And I knew immediately what she was talking about. And I just thought, how interesting of God to have me far, far away from
yeah.
I was in this remote place, so it was like quiet, so I could write. And still here, people were being touched. Um, so Eggs Over Easy is still out here living his best life.
Oh, and I love the project, and I'm glad I'm a proud supporter of the
Mhm.
project.
Yes, you were one
Um,
of my first supporters.
yeah, 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 because I believed in it, and it's one of those things as I was watching, it's one of those a lot of the people that were in the documentary, I know them, and I had no clue that they were struggling because we
Mhm.
don't really talk about it that much. It's
Exactly.
like this wall of shame about fertility. And my heart broke because it's like, wait a minute, I see this person all the time and they have these smiling little faces and this, that. Who knew? Who knew that this was going on right in my circle? And I
Yeah.
did not know about it
Yep.
because, and then I didn't even know a lot of the terminologies, and I didn't know how to interact. What's the best way? What do you say when someone tells you they're having fertility issues? Do you say, I'm sorry? Do you say, let me help you research? Like, what do you do, especially when you don't understand? And so this was so eye opening for me. And now I have a different view of what's going on and how we as African American women are so behind the eight ball when it comes to knowledge. And so then I started thinking about my daughter, who was very young. And I was like, you know what? When she gets a certain age, if she allows me to, I will gift her egg freezing. I will gift her this because I want her to have options. Because a lot of times, based on the stories that are in your documentary, you don't know you're gonna have a problem until you have the problem. And at
Exactly.
that point, it's too late. And if you didn't do XYZ before you learned about this problem, you're done. You're done. And so I'm glad you're opening up this situation, the conversation, so that we can talk about it. We can talk because there's nothing to be ashamed of at all. It's just we have to spread the word, and you are definitely spreading the word. And thank you, Miss Oprah Winfrey, if you're watching this,
Hey,
for
Oprah.
picking up my friend's documentary. And of course, several of my friends worked on it with you because
Hmm.
this is so important. So, so important.
Yep.
So kudos to
And
you.
also, I would say, since we are talking about law, one of the things that we don't really discuss in terms of our reproductive health is that not only do you have to learn to be a doctor and know all this stuff, you also have to be a lawyer for half
Yes.
of the stuff that you're doing. Because if you're talking surrogacy, if you're talking egg donation, those are contracts. And I
Yes.
had no idea. I had no idea because
Mhm.
I don't need I never needed a surrogate. I,
Yeah.
didn't do egg donation, didn't do sperm donation. So even finding that out, like, you have to have a whole lawyer. So when they
Yeah.
say, oh, it costs so much, even like if you that was the second half of the film. So adoption, surrogacy, sperm donor, egg donation. When you do any of those to grow your family, you need a legal team. So
Yeah.
that when you're paying $50,000 or $100,000, you're not just paying for your medical care. You're not just paying for the shots. You have a legal team who comes
Yes.
in to make sure that if a surrogate or a gestational carrier, which is the technical term for a woman who carries the baby, um,
Mhm.
that at the end of the day, the intended parents are the parents and not
Parents.
the gestational carrier. And also, if you are a surrogate, the attorney they have their own attorney, which you as an intended parent also pay for. So you're paying for two legal teams, to make sure that they're not stuck with the baby if you change your mind. Like, let's say if the baby has chromosomal abnormalities, or for any reason that a parent, intended parent, decides they don't want this baby, the surrogate is carrying. There have been cases where the gestational carrier was stuck with the baby. So that is why
Wow.
you have to pay for their legal team too. So you need two sets of legal team. But normally when you go through an agency, the agency sets it up so you don't have to like go out and find your own team. But agencies are expensive. So for women and couples who do it themselves, because it's not really just women. You can also have like same sex couples. Um,
Sure.
so they have to, if they don't go through an agency, they have to find this stuff themselves, and you have to be your doctor and your lawyer.
And then what happens? And I'm just saying this question because I know what happens if you can't afford it. And if you want to have a family and you don't have $50,000 to spend on this.
So I would say 5 years ago, you would just be out of luck because there's nothing you can do except foster. You can foster, you can always foster. So if you want to be a
Sure.
parent and you're okay with not being a biological parent to your child, you can foster or foster to adopt. That's a
Mhm.
free route to parenthood for those who want it. And of course, there are always neighborhood kids. There's always like in Black communities, we raise our cousins' kids.
Right.
So there's that. But if you're saying I want about my own biological child and I don't have $25,000 or $50,000, 5 years ago there was like nothing that you could do. You could just go to therapy and find ways to deal with your emotions. But in terms
Mhm.
of making it to that baby, not much you could do. Now, thankfully, because the conversation is a little bit more in terms of society, we talk about it a little bit more. So there are grants. So I'm on the advisory board for a nonprofit called the CADE Foundation,
Okay.
CADE. So CADE gives out, they have two grant cycles. They've given over $1 million to help people complete their family. So if you need to pay for
Awesome.
IVF, or if you need IUI, or whatever your medical situation is, if you going with the surrogate, and or you're doing donor eggs. They do anything, everything except egg freezing. So that's
Mhm.
a place you can go. But there are so many more. Broken brown egg for people who are looking to broken brown egg, fertility for color girls. All these people offer grants. And then CNY Fertility, they're based in New York. And at the last time I looked, they were the second best fertility clinic in the state of New York. They're up near Buffalo. So they have the lowest rates that I was able to find. And this is not a commercial for them. They don't give me
Sure.
any money. I just feel like if you can do it for 7,000 instead of 50,000, you should at
Yes.
least look at it. They have a long list, so you'll be waitlisted forever. But I know people who've had success, like they are carrying their kids right now, and they
Uh,
did it through CNY. And every month, CNY does a giveaway. So if you're on social media, I try to repost everything on our Eggs Over Easy Instagram, and it's just the little @ Eggs Over Easy Film. Don't forget to put film on it, because if you forget, it takes you somewhere else.
uh-oh.
So we have a little bubble at the top with grants, I think is what it says. But you could just look down whenever we see somebody, an organization giving money, we'll just repost it. So that has been helpful for a lot of people who are trying to start their families and they don't have $50,000. Another thing, which is I think kind of like a best kept secret, there are some companies who cover whose insurance riders cover infertility care. One of them is Starbucks. If you're in
Oh,
technology like Facebook, Spotify, Amazon, most of them cover it too, and they also cover egg freezing. You have to work for like a certain amount of time, but they cover it. And then I think the last time I checked, there were 14 or 16 states with mandated infertility coverage to a certain degree. It won't cover all of it, but it'll at least help you a little bit. But I always say, if you need help, get you a job at Starbucks, because I want to think it's like 3 months you have to work, and through, of course, through your treatments, but 3 months. That's better insurance, which is also, it kind of sucks that in this country you will have better health care at Starbucks than at some of these Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. And that is ridiculous, in my
yeah,
personal opinion. Not that
yeah.
anybody asked me, but I think it's crazy. But those are some things that people can do. Get your side job at Starbucks.
Wow. You are such a wealth of information about this, and it's so important. Again, I can't thank you enough for bringing this to the forefront. And like you said, following your passion, because this is something that happened to you that you thought, okay, maybe other people need this information. And look
Yeah.
how it's blossomed and grown because you followed your faith and what you thought was right. So, what is on the horizon for you? Let's talk 5 years. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, in 5 years, I see myself taking a nap on a beach.
Okay, take
Like,
a nap.
that is my exit strategy. But I will always continue. Like, I talk to my friends all the time. I don't know that retirement is in the plan, my plan, or God's plan for my life. Cause to do what?
Yeah.
No. So I don't see myself retiring ever. I just want to continue to make stories that are impactful, tell stories that actually help people and change their lives, and keep knocking down the door. Hopefully in 5 years it won't be as hard to get financing for Black
Mhm.
content, as we are one of the marginalized communities in this industry. So those are like some things I'm working on. I'm on the board of the Black Women Film Network, and part of
Mhm.
what we do is crack open the door for Black women to have opportunities, because we're like the minority in this industry. We are the least funded, and we're, in my opinion, the hardest workers.
Of course.
So just continuing to crack open that door. Black Women Film Network this is our 26th year. We've been around for a very long time. We're the oldest organization that focuses on helping Black women tell stories. So just trying to do more work there, continuing to knock down the door. Our summit is coming up. We're about to announce it today, as a matter of fact. But our
Okay.
summit is coming up March the 25th here in Atlanta. And anybody here, just go to Black Women Film website or on Instagram, and you can find out more information. But that's how I see the next 5 years playing out. More stories. We're moving it. So I am furious about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So
Mhm.
trying to find ways to tell stories about that.
Yeah.
That's also like at the top of my to-do list.
Okay. So again, I guess in a nutshell, booked and busy. still in 5 years.
Yes.
Uh, and so, one last question for you.
Uh,
When I started this podcast, I would always say, let's live legal. And it's not necessarily about traditional, like legal law, but legal stands for letting your ego go and living. Tell me about a time you let your ego go and said, you know what? I'm just going to live.
oh, Lashonda.
Oh, Shaquita.
I'm like, well, which time?
Right.
Well,
But
which
just give us one.
time?
Give us one.
Um, well, not which time, but which time for public consumption.
Oh, I get that. I get that.
Which time to for public consumption? So I would just say in general, I work with a lot of people who are known people, not just in faith-based, but also in mainstream. And a lot of time there are egos there. And
Yeah.
so in my 20s, I was terrible at it. I'm like, what are you even saying? Like, this is my job. I know how to do it. And you can either do it this way or we don't have to do this. And good luck to what you're trying to work on. But as I've grown into like kind of being an adult, now I just take a beat and pull back to say, like, I know it's my ego. And I'm, even if I'm right, I'll still pause and say, is my end goal bigger
Mm,
than my ego? Do I want to finish this project through to the end? Or do I want to just be like, I got a couple of degrees, you don't, you hired me, you can hear me, don't have to hear me. It's at the end of the day, you're gonna be stuck with some problems. So pulling myself back to check my own ego, even if I'm right, which I'm not always right. A lot of times I'm right, but I'm not always right. But even if I'm right, to reel myself in and put my ego in check to know that the project that I'm trying to do or the message that I'm trying to send or the audience that needs to hear this, am I blocking this information from getting out
mm,
because I gotta be right or because my ego is in play?
mm.
That's a hard lesson. And
That
the older I've gotten, the more I'm able to do it because I can detach in a way that before I couldn't detach. Because before I was still trying to like prove myself in this space, working and trying to prove myself. So if something goes left, I didn't want my name on it or like I want them to know I have these degrees for a reason. Like that was a part of my DNA. So it
mhm.
was really hard to like separate that whole conversation and dialogue that I would be having within myself, especially working with like if I'm leading a crew, I'm the only black person there. They assume I'm younger than I am, and they would just be disrespectful.
Yeah.
So, do I want to have this live show go live when the countdown hits, or do I want my whole crew to walk off because they don't want to work with me? They didn't want to work with me anyway. How do I fight this battle, especially with people who are not of color and they
Right.
don't respect that I'm in this role? So
Mhm.
that has been that has been a journey just dealing with myself um because the fight was always going to be with me versus me. I think I've that has helped me tremendously, but 5 and 10 years ago, no, I couldn't say that. I wouldn't even answer this question.
Oh, no, I understand. Because trust me, I
So
walk in,
that's where I am now.
yeah, I get it. I walk into depositions, people still ask me if I'm the court reporter. And there's nothing wrong with being a court reporter, but
But you have
why
a
does
law
your mind,
degree.
yeah, why does your mind just automatically go there? Just, I'll just leave it there. Why?
And it's tough. It's really, really tough, Lashonda. Because there's a reason that it says producer by my name or executive producer by my name. I didn't just wake up with a silver spoon. I worked hard for these things. So to be second guess whether it's the client who makes assumptions because I'm the black woman, or if it's my crew, an entire crew, and nobody looks like me and they don't want to listen to me, it's really, really tough. But at the end of the day, if I want the project done and if I want the messaging out, I have to deal with myself. Whether they are right or wrong, and they're usually wrong, and just underestimating me or making assumptions because of the package that I'm in. And they don't want to work with me in that way. So I have to kill my ego all the time if I want to get the job done.
Understood. Well, I wish we had more time, Chiquita, but thank you so much for joining us. Last but not least, how can our viewers and listeners find you?
Well, I can be reached on Instagram in two places. One is at Eggs Over Easy Film, and the other is my page, which is Quita Writes, like write with an ink pen. And thank you for having me. It's so good to see you, kind of
Thanks.
like in real life. I haven't seen you in a while, so thank you for having me. I'm so proud of all the work you're doing. Like I remember law school, Lashonda.
I
Okay,
know.
so this is just so fantastic to me.
Oh, yeah. Like I'm about to say, don't take it back there. It's like, whew. Yes, but thank you so much. And so, everyone, again, you have been watching the amazing Chiquita Lockley here on Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. So, make sure you check her out and continue to tune in. Thanks again. You've been tuning into Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. In each episode, we have authentic and entertaining conversations about the impact of the law on women. I hope you'll join me each time. You can find this show on my website at www.thecounselfirm.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. We appreciate your positive comments and reviews. And don't forget to share this show with others. I've been your host, Lashonda Counsel Rogers.